Ethan Carter stood at the massive entrance of the Zitharian royal palace, feeling a mixture of awe and nervousness. The palace towered into the violet sky, its spires glinting in the light of 3 suns. No human had ever walked these halls with an official purpose before. He was young, only 24, but this mission carried great importance. The human colonies were offering a technological exchange, and the alien royal court had agreed to hear him out. He adjusted his uniform and straightened, the small bag of instruments strapped to his chest. Inside were years of study and preparation, a human invention he hoped could improve interstellar energy transfer, a technology the aliens had struggled to perfect. When he entered the grand hall, silence fell. The air smelled of polished stone and a faint metallic temps. Alien nobles in long flowing robes of shimmering colors turned their large almond-shaped eyes toward him. He noticed how delicate yet sharp their features were. And then, at the center of the hall, seated on a raised dais, was Princess Lysera. She was striking. Her skin shimmered with a faint golden hue, and her hair moved as if caught in a gentle breeze, even though the room was still. Her eyes, violet and piercing, scanned Ethan with curiosity, then quickly turned to amusement. "Ah, the human child," she said, her voice melodic, but carrying an unmistakable edge of mockery. "We have heard that your species calls itself intelligent. Let us see if you can even handle a simple demonstration." Ethan swallowed, feeling a pang of tension, but he did not respond. He simply nodded politely. This was not the time for arguments or explanations. His mission required composure. "Bring forth your invention," Lysera commanded, waving her hand gracefully. 2 alien attendants rolled forward a polished platform. Ethan carefully unpacked his device, a compact but intricate array of energy conduits. He could feel the weight of dozens of eyes on him, each noble curious, some skeptical, and Princess Lysera clearly amused. He began his demonstration, showing how the energy conduits could transfer power from one point to another efficiently, without the losses that plagued even the most advanced alien systems. A soft hum filled the hall as the device activated. Lights glowed along the conduits, and a small orb levitated above the platform. "Impressive," said one of the nobles, leaning forward. "For a human, at least." Lysera's laughter cut through the air. "Impressive. Childish might be a more suitable word. Look at how small and fragile it is. Do humans truly imagine such toys can compete with our power grids? This is amusing." The other nobles joined in, some clapping sarcastically, others whispering behind fans and claws. Ethan felt the sting, but he did not shrink back. He continued with his demonstration, letting the machine run without interruption. He knew its true strength was in what could not be seen immediately: the efficiency, the precision. Lysera stepped down from her dais, gliding toward him with her robes flowing like liquid gold. She leaned over, studying the device, her eyes narrowing. "This contraption of yours," she said slowly, deliberately, as if tasting each word, "could never meet the standards of Zitharian engineering. You call yourself an inventor? A diplomat? Perhaps your species is better suited to menial labor." A ripple of laughter echoed through the hall. Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks, but he did not speak. He simply observed. Every word, every gesture of Lysera, every smirk was now a record in his mind. He noticed small inefficiencies in the court's own systems, subtle errors the aliens overlooked. His mind worked faster than his heart. He finished the demonstration with a soft click. The orb returned to the platform. The device had operated flawlessly, transferring energy in perfect synchronization. The nobles paused, impressed despite themselves. Lysera's eyes met his, sharp and challenging. "Do you have anything else to show us, human?" Ethan nodded, keeping his voice calm and steady. "No, Princess. That is the complete demonstration." The hall erupted in more laughter. "Complete? Childish? Pathetic? A human dares show such mediocrity?" Ethan said nothing. He did not argue. He did not defend. He simply packed his device carefully, each motion precise, measured, and calm. His silence was deliberate. Every laugh, Every word of ridicule strengthened his resolve. He had come not for approval, but to learn, observe, and understand the true state of alien technology. Lysera watched him, a flicker of annoyance passing across her features. She expected fear, embarrassment, tears, or anger. But Ethan showed none. He moved with quiet dignity, finishing his work without a single word of complaint. After the demonstration, he was escorted to a guest chamber, a small room compared to the grandiose hall, but elegant nonetheless. As he unpacked and checked his instruments, he reflected on the events of the day. Humiliation could be sharp, but he had survived it. He had learned the patterns of the alien court, noted weaknesses in their machinery, and even glimpsed cracks in the hierarchy he had never imagined. He thought of Princess Lysera. The arrogance she displayed was natural for a ruler, but it was also a sign that she underestimated humans. And that underestimation, he knew, was humanity's greatest advantage. Days passed, and Ethan attended more meetings and presentations, each time enduring subtle jabs, pointed questions, and quiet ridicule. Yet each session, he listened more than he spoke, observed more than he reacted. He quietly documented his observations. Every flaw in the energy networks, every inefficiency in logistics, every arrogance-driven miscalculation, even when he dined in the royal hall. Sitting at the lowest table, he noticed the hierarchy and its blind spots. He made careful mental notes of every servant, every noble, and every pattern of behavior. Nothing escaped him. One evening, Princess Lysera herself approached him in the corridors. "You remain quiet, human," she said, her voice softer, tinged with curiosity. "Do you not feel humiliation? Shame?" Ethan looked at her calmly. "Silence can sometimes speak louder than words, princess. An observation can teach more than ridicule." Lysera's eyes widened, but she masked it with a small, dismissive laugh. "Perhaps. Or perhaps you are just afraid to speak, weak and small in the presence of greatness." Ethan only smiled faintly. There was no anger in his smile, no bitterness, only patience and careful planning. "Perhaps. Or perhaps princess greatness can be recognized when one knows when to act and when to wait." Lysera studied him for a long moment. Then she turned, walking away with her flowing robes trailing behind her. Ethan knew she did not understand his meaning yet, but one day she might, by the end of his mission. Ethan had gained nothing in the eyes of the alien royal court. He had been laughed at, dismissed, and made to feel insignificant. But in the quiet of his chambers, he reviewed his notes and smiled. Every moment of ridicule, every laugh, every sharp word from Lysera had been stored in his mind. He had learned more than any book could teach him. He had understood the flaws, the arrogance, and the overconfidence of the alien empire. And more importantly, he had learned patience, the power of silence, when his transport arrived to take him back to the human colonies. Ethan left without a word of farewell. The court had no memory of the quiet human who had walked among them, except perhaps as a momentary amusement. Princess Lysera probably thought of him as a trivial annoyance, fleeting distraction. But Ethan carried something far more valuable than the fleeting approval of royalty. He carried knowledge, strategy, and the quiet determination that one day his work would speak for itself. He had endured humiliation, and in that endurance, he had begun to forge a power the alien royal court could never imagine as the transport ship lifted off. Ethan looked back at the palace, its towers glowing under the light of the three suns. "Patience," he whispered to himself. "Everything comes in its time." And thus, the young human left the court, unnoticed, unheard, but not defeated. His silence, though ridiculed, was the seed of a power that would echo for decades, shaping the future in ways the alien royal court could never see coming. Years had passed since Ethan Carter left the Zetharian royal court. The memory of Princess Lysera's laughter, sharp and echoing, had never left him. But instead of bitterness, it fueled him. He knew that the day would come when human intelligence, patience, and resilience could no longer be ignored, and he was determined to be ready for that moment. Ethan returned to Earth and the human colonies. where he immediately set to work. Using the knowledge he had gained during his time at the royal court, began refining and expanding human technology far beyond what had been possible before. At first, people doubted him. Young and quiet, he was seen as idealistic, a dreamer with a stubborn pride in humanity. But Ethan did not need applause. He needed progress. Every night, in laboratories that hummed with energy and flickered with data streams, he worked tirelessly. He began with energy systems, the same technology he had shown to the alien court. The systems he developed now were faster, more efficient, and more adaptable, using compact energy conduits. He designed grids that could power entire cities and space stations without wasting a single unit of energy. These grids could adapt in real time, detecting fluctuations and correcting themselves automatically. Next, he turned his attention to interstellar navigation. The alien starships relied on predictable energy currents and archaic guidance systems. Ethan devised algorithms that allowed ships to traverse vast distances with unparalleled accuracy, avoiding asteroid fields, energy storms, and gravitational anomalies. His work was precise, methodical, and quietly revolutionary. While Ethan's inventions advanced human colonies, the Zetharian Empire remained unaware. Princess Lysera had risen in rank, eventually taking her place as the heir to the throne. She ruled with elegance and authority, confident that her empire was the most advanced and powerful in the galaxy. Humans were considered clever but limited, a species to be observed rather than feared. Ethan kept his distance. He did not seek recognition, titles, or rewards. Instead, he traveled from one human colony to another, teaching young engineers, diplomats, and explorers how to think critically, innovate, and adapt. His reputation grew quietly among humans, whispered in laboratories, spaceports, and council chambers. People admired his calm demeanor and unmatched intellect. Unaware of the full story behind the human who had once been ridiculed by the alien royal court 20 years past, Ethan's inventions had transformed human colonies. Energy shortages were a thing of the past. Transportation between star systems became swift and safe. Defensive technologies made human settlements nearly impervious to external threats. And yet, Ethan remained largely unknown outside the human sphere. His focus was not fame, but readiness. He often thought about Princess Lysera and the Zetharian Empire. They had not changed much. Pride and arrogance still defined their leadership. He recalled the way she had looked at him, the mixture of amusement and disdain, and he smiled faintly. The same pride that once mocked humans now blinded them to the quiet advancements of their distant cousins in the galaxy. Meanwhile, Lysera's empire had expanded aggressively. They believed that strength came from display, wealth, and power. They invested heavily in grand projects and intricate weapons, often overlooking simple, practical innovations. Ethan knew their weaknesses intimately, having studied their systems decades ago. Their arrogance had become predictable. Predictability was a weakness in the face of intelligence and patience. One evening, as Ethan reviewed data in his private laboratory, a young engineer approached him. "Sir," she said, "the colonies are asking for a demonstration of the latest energy shields. They're ready for interstellar testing." Ethan nodded. "Good. Prepare everything. But remember, the key is subtlety. The moment technology shouts its power is the moment it can be misunderstood or misused." The engineer hesitated. "But the colonies want a grand display," Ethan smiled. "Grand displays are for those seeking attention. Humans are not here to impress. They are here to endure, adapt, and excel. That is our strength." As the shield demonstration proceeded, the energy field enveloped an entire colony's spaceport. The shield absorbed simulated meteor strikes, redirected energy storms, and stabilized atmospheric turbulence. It was flawless, yet to the casual observer it seemed like a simple barrier. That subtlety was by design. Humans did not need applause. They needed results. While Ethan continued his work, he maintained occasional contact with interstellar diplomatic channels. Aliens, including those from Zetharian, continued to underestimate humans. Reports of human achievements were often dismissed, twisted, or ignored entirely. The Empire believed humans were clever but predictable, lacking the creativity to surpass alien advancements. Ethan found this amusing. Their misjudgment was part of the plan. During these years, Ethan also cultivated young leaders, diplomats, and engineers who would carry forward the human legacy. He instilled in them a philosophy of quiet observation, meticulous planning, and ethical innovation. These individuals spread across the galaxy, quietly reshaping the balance of power. Each human colony became more independent, more capable, and more confident. Lysera, meanwhile, dealt with internal court politics. Advisors whispered, nobles schemed, and rivals tested her authority. Yet she remained confident. She believed that her empire was unchallenged, that the humans were merely clever, but insignificant. This belief made her vulnerable, though she did not know it. Ethan, however, watched from afar, calculating the moment when human advancements would become undeniable. He had no desire for revenge. His goal was not to humiliate Lysera, but to ensure that her arrogance did not threaten the stability of the galaxy. Intelligence, he knew, needed patience. And patience had been his ally for decades. 20-7 years had passed since that fateful day in the royal court. Ethan had grown older, wiser, and stronger in ways that could not be measured by strength or wealth alone. The human colonies thrived under his guidance. Energy networks spanned systems, starships moved with precision, and colonies defended themselves with technologies unseen in any alien empire. One day, an interstellar message arrived from Zithrian. A diplomatic conference was being called to discuss a new energy treaty. Princess Lysera herself had extended the invitation. She expected humans to arrive, perhaps to negotiate, perhaps to submit. She did not expect Ethan. Ethan studied the invitation carefully. The timing was perfect. Decades of preparation had culminated in this moment. He did not seek revenge for the ridicule he had endured, but he intended to demonstrate the power of patience, intelligence, and silent strength. He prepared for the journey, selecting only the most subtle yet effective technologies for the demonstration. Energy grids, shields, navigation systems, each device reflected decades of human innovation. Each was designed to show strength without arrogance, results without spectacle. As the transport ship left the human colonies, Ethan looked back at the stars. He remembered the young man who had stood in the Zetharian court, laughed at, and dismissed. That man had endured, observed, and learned. Now, he was not a child, but a master of human ingenuity. Carrying decades of silent preparation, he thought of Princess Lysera, of her laughter, and of the arrogance that had blinded her. He did not wish her harm, but he knew that when the time came, she would see the consequences of underestimating humanity. And when she did, it would be undeniable as he approached Zetharian. Ethan reflected on the lessons of his life: humility, observation, patience, and resilience. These were the true strengths of humans, the qualities that no alien could mock or diminish. They were the qualities that had allowed him to endure ridicule, to grow quietly, and to prepare for a future in which humanity would be recognized. Respected, and perhaps feared, the royal palace came into view once more. It had changed little in decades, yet everything had changed. The humans who had once been dismissed were now capable of feats the Zetharian Empire could not ignore. Ethan adjusted his instruments, checked his notes, and took a deep breath. This time, he would not be ridiculed. This time, his silence would speak louder than words. And when the moment came, Princess Lysera would remember the quiet human who had once been laughed at, and she would understand that patience and preparation could echo louder than any insult. Ethan stepped onto the palace grounds, calm and composed. The courtiers, seeing him again after decades, barely recognized him. Princess Lysera, now older, but still commanding, looked up from her dais. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the man who had once been a young, quiet human. Laughed at and dismissed. Ethan's eyes met hers, steady and calm. No anger, no malice. Only confidence. Only patience. Only the quiet strength of decades of preparation. The stage was set. The silence that had endured for 27 years was about to speak. And the galaxy, including the proud Princess Lysera, would finally hear it. The grand hall of the Zetherian royal palace was brighter than Ethan remembered, its crystal spires reflecting the light of 3 suns like scattered gems. Alien courtiers in flowing robes gathered, their expressions a mix of curiosity and anticipation. The announcement of Ethan Carter's return had spread quickly, though few had expected his reputation to be more than a rumor. At the center of the hall sat Princess Lysera, and commanding. She had not forgotten the young human who had stood before her 27 years ago. Though she had assumed he would never amount to more than a curiosity, she regarded him now with a mixture of recognition and caution. The boy who had been laughed at had become a man whose presence alone demanded attention. Ethan entered the hall, calm and composed. He carried nothing more than a small, sleek case, the contents of which represented decades of human innovation. He did not rush, did not bow excessively, and did not speak unnecessarily. His silence was deliberate, a contrast to the murmurs and whispers surrounding him. Lysera's eyes followed him, sharp and calculating. "Human," she said, her voice steady, "you have returned after so many years. Tell me, have you come to beg for recognition?" Ethan smiled faintly. "No, Princess. I have come to share what patience, observation, and diligence have achieved." He opened his case. Inside were devices that seemed simple at first glance: a compact energy grid, a navigation console, and a small shield generator. Yet, each was far more advanced than anything the Zetherian Empire had ever produced. The energy grid could power an entire city silently, efficiently, without wasting a single unit. The navigation console allowed starships to traverse hazardous space with flawless accuracy. And the shield generator could envelop a spaceport, absorbing meteor strikes, energy storms, and even attempts at sabotage. The courtiers whispered among themselves. Many had assumed humans were clever but limited. Now, they began to question their assumptions. Even Lysera's advisors exchanged uneasy glances. Ethan began his demonstration. First, he activated the energy grid. Lights flickered across the hall as the device absorbed and redistributed energy flawlessly. The hall's own systems seemed pale in comparison. Ethan's movements were precise, efficient, and confident. He did not explain or boast. The results spoke for themselves. Then came the navigation console. He projected a holographic map of nearby star systems, showing precise paths for interstellar travel. Routes that had once taken weeks could now be traversed in days, avoiding natural hazards and alien patrols. The aliens leaned forward, astonished at the level of sophistication. Finally, he activated the shield generator. A translucent dome formed over the palace grounds, shimmering with energy. Courtiers touched it hesitantly, testing its strength. It absorbed kinetic impacts, redirected energy surges, and maintained complete stability. Even the palace's most advanced defenses seemed rudimentary compared to this device. Lysera rose from her dais. Her violet eyes were wide, her expression a mixture of awe and disbelief. This is impossible," she said. "How could a human achieve such mastery?" Ethan met her gaze calmly. "By observing, learning, and preparing. By understanding that patience can be more powerful than arrogance, Princess. By remembering that every insult, every dismissal, every moment of ridicule is an opportunity to grow stronger quietly." The hall fell silent. Courtiers who had once laughed now stared in astonishment. The human who had been ridiculed had returned, not with anger or revenge, but with undeniable brilliance. The echo of his silence, decades in the making, resonated louder than any words of insult could have. Lysera took a slow step forward. "I underestimated you," she admitted, her voice almost a whisper. "I laughed at you, dismissed you, thought humans were incapable of real power. Yet here you stand, and your work surpasses anything our empire has achieved." Ethan inclined his head respectfully. "Underestimation is natural, Princess. But intelligence paired with patience will always reveal its strength in time." The courtiers began to murmur again, this time with respect rather than ridicule. Some approached the devices cautiously, examining their workings. Others whispered about the implications for the Empire. The human colonies, once dismissed, were now clearly a force the Zitherian Empire could not ignore. Lysera studied Ethan carefully. She had always valued pride and strength, believing that display and authority defined leadership. Yet here was a man who had achieved greatness through quiet diligence, without seeking recognition, without arrogance. It was a lesson she had never expected to learn. "You have changed the balance of power," Lysera said finally. "Not through force, not through wealth, but through patience, observation, dedication." Ethan smiled gently. "That is correct, Princess. Humans are not loud. We do not always seek applause, but we endure. We innovate. We prepare. And sometimes, the quietest actions echo the longest." Lysera considered his words. For the first time, she felt humility, not shame, but respect. The arrogance she had relied on for decades had blinded her to possibilities she could no longer ignore. The human, who had once been a subject of amusement, was now a symbol of capability, strategy, and vision. The audience erupted in applause, not for spectacle, but for achievement. Ethan did not seek it, but he accepted it with quiet dignity. The message was clear. Humans underestimated for so long had proven themselves through decades of patience and ingenuity. Lysera approached him once more, her expression softer now. "I owe you an apology," she said. 27 years ago, I mocked you publicly. I assumed that you would remain insignificant, that your silence was weakness. I was wrong. Your silence was strength, and your patience. It has reshaped the galaxy." Ethan nodded. "Apology accepted, Princess. But remember, this is not about revenge. It is about understanding that intelligence, patience, and preparation cannot be rushed. Those who dismiss others often discover their true power too late." The court remained quiet, absorbing the weight of Ethan's words. He had achieved what no display of wealth or status could: recognition for humanity, respect for patience, and a lesson for the proud alien empire. Lysera stepped back and looked around her court. Her advisors, who had once scoffed at humans, now looked at her, waiting for guidance. She understood that her empire's arrogance had nearly blinded them to an emerging power. Yet, rather than anger, she felt gratitude for the lesson, for the wisdom, and for the quiet human who had proven that silence, patience, and intellect could echo forever. Ethan prepared to leave the hall, his demonstration complete. He had not sought victory over the aliens, nor had he wished to humiliate them. His goal had been simple: to show that humans, underestimated and dismissed, could endure, innovate, and thrive. That their silence was not weakness, but a signal of careful planning and quiet strength. As he walked toward the exit, Lysera called after him. "Human, wait." He turned. "You have changed my perspective, and perhaps the future of our empire as well. I will not forget this lesson." I respect you." Ethan nodded once more, a faint smile on his face. "That is all I hoped for, Princess." The doors of the palace opened, and Ethan stepped out into the light of the triple suns. The hum of the Zitherian capital was now quiet in comparison to the echo of decades of preparation. The human who had been ridiculed had returned, not with anger, not with vengeance, but with undeniable proof of intellect, patience, and silent strength. The galaxy had changed. Humans had changed it, and the echo of Ethan Carter's silence had begun 27 years ago in the laughter-filled halls of the alien royal court, would resonate across worlds for generations. Even Princess Lysera, proud and commanding, could not ignore the truth. Sometimes the quietest human, dismissed and ridiculed, was capable of shaping the fate of the galaxy, and in that truth, humanity had found its place, not through arrogance, not through force, but through patience, intelligence, and the quiet echo of a single human's resilience.